Welcome to Unconscious Evolution, Nicole. It's great to have you here today.
Hi, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm so excited to be here and see what unfolds here. And yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Oh my gosh, it's my pleasure. I mean, I really appreciate you spending time to share stories about your life that potentially have reshaped the choices that you make and the woman that you've become.
Yeah.
Let's get in a quick introduction.
hmm
Nicole Peterhans has lived a culturally colorful life. Through energy alignment and spiritual guidance, she supports highly sensitive people, empaths, and introverts to break free from their limiting beliefs and fears. Her work leads her clients to empowerment and a deep knowing of who they are and what they want from life. For my listeners, it's really important to me that the guests I have on the show be accessible to you. I'll always include their contact information and social media details in the show notes.
Okay.
Nicole, thank you again for opening up to us today. What would you like to share? And has anything new come up for you over the last several hours or recent day?
Well, again, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much. Well, I kind of feel like there's always new stuff coming up, but let's. God.
I
I
love that. I love that.
Yeah, it's but anyway, let me start when it all started, this whole journey for me. When I came to this country. I'm originally from Switzerland, and I came to this country in 1997. And it took me a few years to make this happen. I had my heart set on coming, to the US for a bit longer than that. It took me about 7 years, I think, until I was able to manifest. and and one of the reasons why I was so almost desperate, I grew up in Switzerland, and Switzerland is a very kind of restricted um, culture, very uniform culture, with a lot of unspoken rules, and so you grow up in this culture, and obviously, we adjust to this, but it's a bit tight. And so for people who, and I always liked the different, I didn't like the norm. I liked what was outside of it. I liked change. I liked things how they are, again, different, other countries. And so for me, this was very stifling. I realized, I mean, obviously, I didn't quite realize that when I was growing up, but over the years. And what happened was, because I'm also sensitive, so I pick up a lot of things and question a lot of things. And through that, I would say things that, people found strange, or mainly my mother found strange. And I would,
You have any examples that you can think of?
um,
Just to give us an idea of, when you say that Switzerland is tight or was tight, it's just kind of very different, just to help us understand and put more perspective into what that means.
yeah, I mean, I kind of forgot the little details, but to just give you an idea how it's structured, and that was when I was growing up, that was like 40 years ago when I was little. Um, but it was just very much everybody, like the whole society was kind of structured the same. Children would be in school from 8 to 12, would come home for lunch, would go back at 2 and come back home at 4. So that was, everybody did that. Everybody was at work from 8 to 5, and then you were home. And so this was the whole society did that. And then, you respect your neighbors, you're quiet, you just be very careful to not upset anybody, to be loud, to run up and down. I mean, that was one thing that I always got in trouble, running up and down. We lived in an apartment building, and I ran up and down, instead of walking quietly, and, things, it's little things, it's a lot of these little things that I did, where I was reprimanded, and where I was just, kind of following my free spirit, I guess, and that would be reined in. Um, and eventually that made me kind of be quiet. I didn't, I would not speak anymore. I would not voice my opinions anymore, my thoughts anymore, because I was always afraid of being reprimanded or being told that this is weird, or why would you say this? And so I by my teens, in school, I would not raise my hand anymore. because I was afraid. And so I just kind of wanted to be invisible, and hoping, not to catch anybody's, the teacher's attention. I was okay with friends, but my teacher's attention. But that really, oh, and another big thing was clothes. I was like, again, if you would try something a little bit more different, in clothes as a teenager, again, I would hear these things. You can't walk around like that. What would the neighbor say? And and somebody else might not have cared, but to me, this again was very stifling and restricting. And I came to the US the first time in my early 20s, and I went to New York, and of course New York is very open and free, but I felt like, oh my gosh, I felt like such a freedom in how you are and what you can do. And I was only there for 3 days, but it was like, oh my gosh, and it was just such a stark contrast, to what I was used to, and how people would, just live and be and express themselves, just say things and be singing, outside, and just do whatever they felt like, where I would always hold these things back within me. And that's kind of when I knew, or kind of wanted to, you know, started to think about, maybe I can come here and live here, and so over the years I started to pursue that in a little bit more earnest. And I actually won the green card eventually. And there's this green card lottery that people can apply and sign up for. So I won that, and even though in the end I didn't use it, I got married to my husband. But so we kind of had a double a double lane, kind of to find my way, and or becoming legal here, basically. So that was again kind of my big pivotal moment in my life, I would say, that changed a lot. Me not even realizing what was coming my way. I knew I was kind of stifled and not free, but what this whole journey since I've been here, what this all encompassed is just way more than what I ever thought it would be. My not only on my emotional level, how I was able to open up and be myself, but also in my spiritual path, what was coming my way and where I am right now. I wouldn't have never thought how this would evolve. You
Yeah.
know,
So when you think back to when you were in New York for 3 days, so
Mm.
that was just a trip, but that was just a
Long weekend.
adventure you were
Yes.
okay. And so what was it like that you felt kind of clicked inside of you? So I know that you said that you really identify with people just being free and singing in the streets.
Mhm.
What do you think happened for you, right? So when you're living in an element in a hemisphere in a universe, essentially, there in Switzerland, that you
Mhm.
don't identify with, and then you get somewhere that you do,
Mhm.
what did you feel emerging in who you maybe thought you always could be, or you didn't
Mhm.
even know? I mean, what did you feel
Mhm.
that just you knew that being here in this country was a better fit for you? What was it that, besides what you saw, what did you feel? What started to transform in you?
That's hard. I mean, again, I saw that there was no judgment, because I constantly felt judged in how I was. And when I was there, I realized, and I know this is a very kind of strange, maybe example, but that was back during the time when everybody was wearing leggings,
Was
like
wearing leggings?
the early 90s. It was this trend.
Yeah.
And I tried it once and I got such a frowned upon. I never did it again. And when I was in New York, so many people wore leggings, and I'm like, this is so different. Here you can do this, and there's no restrictions, and it's just opened up my eyes that it can be very different to just again living just how you feel, how you want to be. And it actually did allow me, I felt different inside. I felt, even though I didn't obviously change my whole wardrobe, but it was just this opening inside, like, wow, this is so different. And obviously there's places, and I have to do that. I have to find that, because I didn't look forward to go back.
Right.
Yeah.
How were you able then, once you and your husband, you moved to the United States, well, you still had family and friends back in Switzerland.
Mhm.
How did you navigate those relationships now that you were a new Nicole? You
Mhm.
were able to be the Nicole that you always wanted to be. You could be
Mhm.
free, but
Yeah.
knowing how a lot of the people from your homeland culture,
Mhm.
they're not gonna catch up to you, right? I mean,
No.
they're not with you, they're not seeing how you've evolved. How did you navigate those relationships when now you were different?
Yeah, that was interesting, and to a certain extent, I kind of knew what was expected, so I probably would also tone it down. So I've learned very early on to know what I could say and what I couldn't say. So for a long time, I was in this in between, kind of still adjusting to the old culture while I was there, and then maybe little drops here and there to kind of even to challenge, and I like doing that. I like to challenge, and
You're
then
gonna
kind of
push
see the
buttons, right?
yes, and then see the reactions and but always knowing, I'm not here. I wasn't there for very long. I usually spent the summers there with the kids, and I would go back. So I was still kind of for a long time I would adjust to what was expected, and also for a very long time I didn't think I would ever want to live there again, or couldn't live there, and that has changed recently. And it's not that we are thinking of going back, but it has definitely changed to for a few years now to a place where when I go now, I don't care anymore. I'm myself. I fully embraced of I probably couldn't even fake it anymore because I'm not that person anymore. Back then I was kind of in between, but now I've shifted so much in embracing what I want, who I want to be, and just really living this that I can't even change this anymore. And it was funny last year actually when I was there, my mom did comment on that, and she was kind of, and it was not negative, but she noticed it. She said, "Wow, I would never do that." And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, that's how we are different now." I mean, not I
Exactly.
can't remember what it was. It was not being like me. She wouldn't do that, but it was something that I said, I think, or approached somebody, and she's like, "Wow," and she was kind of like surprised. In a way, surprised,
Yeah.
but in a good way. And yeah, so now I'm just myself, and I really fully got close the circle, being able to close the circle with a lot more knowledge and with a lot more, I mean, knowledge of who I am, and also being comfortable, and yeah, again, just being it. I don't even know anymore who I was, because I was able to shift, no, to release all these layers of the fears that I held and of the insecurities. I was a very insecure person back then, but I was able to shift so much, and now I'm just who I am. And yeah, I think people, I don't really know what they think, but again, I don't really care.
That's so great, but, as you're talking, you're making me think about how imperative it is in our lives to be in an environment, to be around people
Mhm.
that help to shape who we want to be,
Mhm.
because you maybe could have been living you potentially could have been living anywhere.
Mhm.
You could have maybe been living in Italy.
Mhm.
It's this for some reason where you were,
Mhm.
it was restricting you,
Mhm.
and you, because you were young and
Mhm.
you didn't quite have the strength, you didn't have enough self-knowledge
Yes.
to pull yourself out and say, "Well, this
Yeah,
is me anyway." I mean,
exactly.
I've met people like that in my life, and I'm just absolutely just in awe of
Mhm.
them because
Mhm.
it was never something that I could do.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so to have, for you then to have left
Mhm.
and been able to step into who you are, which I'm sure took time
Mhm.
because I know you've gone through, which I would love to hear from you about, but that you went through some other just personal
Mhm.
transformations. And I
Yes.
mean, of course, as we get older, we change, we start to think about things differently, but I love that perspective really of how when you go back now,
Mhm.
you're like, "This is me,"
Mhm.
because you don't have to perform anymore.
No.
You
Mhm.
know, and
Yes.
that in itself is amazing.
Yes, it feels really good, and honestly, I do feel like I'm again. I said the circle has. I mean, I've come full circle, but kind of, or more like a spiral. I'm on a different level, and I'm certainly very changed. And I believe we all have our journey, and we all have our lessons that we need to learn in this life. And mine was obviously, to really separate from these preconceived notions and find my own voice and my own opinions and desires and stand up for this and live it instead of hiding. So that was my journey for some reason, and it was probably also not a coincidence. I don't really believe in coincidences, that I was born into a country that was so tight, that so uniform, there, that it didn't allow me to be who I was from a very early age. I mean, where I did have to have those struggles and did have a very dominant mom who would really control. How my brother was very different. He handled it very different. He didn't care, growing up. But for me, it was obviously, again, I believe this was my journey to, I mean, the emerging journey, to be free from these shackles from the outside.
Yeah. So just to even pull from the word that you just said, which is shackles, when you think of that, because I know when for me and so many other people that I have spoken to, there are very key things in their life that they needed to try to overcome. We may
Mhm,
not always overcome everything. It can be really hard,
mhm,
but we then can create and adopt new behaviors that override
mhm,
these other emotions or ways of living
mhm,
that we used to that never felt right. And we have a few key patterns with that.
mhm,
Can you tell us some of your key patterns that you have noticed that have really been just pivotal in you becoming who you are? Giving us some,
mhm.
pretty detailed examples of how you were and how you never felt authentic in that self, and now who you are
Yeah,
is has been really momentous.
yes. A lot of things are very much, on the outside. So for example, when one of my friends would say, I remember that actually one of my good friends in Switzerland, she's like, "Oh, I want the buggy, the little car, the VW,
Oh,
the
yeah, the
VW
VW
bug,"
bug.
and she was totally into this. So I'm like, maybe I want one too. Like, this is the car. It's silly. It's really silly. But I didn't even have an opinion on what kind of car I would drive, or again, what kind of clothes would fit me. I would buy something, and if somebody would say something, it wouldn't be, wouldn't fit. I would not. Um, Wear it anymore. So I would be really influenced by the opinions of others on a lot of things in my daily life, even though I knew what I wanted, but then I didn't trust it. So I kind of knew very early on, or for a very long time, what I like and what colors I like. But I always needed a reassurance from the outside that it was okay to move forward. So I always needed that. Again, coming down. I never bought that VW, the car. But I mean, just even the idea, to so I would adapt my opinions to the opinions of others in a lot of things.
And do you think you were aware of it at the time, or you weren't even cognizant that you were doing that because it was mainstream, right? It
Yeah,
was basically you were going with the herd. You
yeah,
were
yeah.
It's like,
No, I was very aware of it, and I didn't like it, but I was not strong enough to stand up to it. But I was very aware of what I was doing, and that I was, yeah, really going against my own grains and against my own likes, and in that sense, really, now that I'm doing the work that I'm doing, this is a big betrayal of myself, because I did not honor what I wanted. I always put other people's opinions first, and whatever I wanted, I dismissed, and saying, "Oh no, okay, yeah, it's not good enough," or "No, she's right. Let's do it this way. Let's go there." Kind of always justifying that something that I missed in the picture or didn't think through, and then would adjust to what other people would, do or say. But I was very aware of it, and I didn't like it. But for a long time, I didn't find a way to work through this. I didn't know how. I didn't even know that it was. I thought it was normal. I didn't realize how um, what sort of an emotional abuse really I was doing with myself, and that was done to me in my upbringing, by not giving me this security and this reverence of, or this support, for who I was and what I wanted was actually, as a child, was actually great. Like as parents, I mean, we try to support our children, and if we don't, yeah, for some it's the physical damage. For me, it was more the emotional damage that was done. But I didn't realize it so much because I was always kind of a happy and joyful person, and was always very optimistic. So I always diminished it until again I started dabbling in more into the energy work, and realizing how these fears or these thoughts were able to shift, and realizing that no, I actually can do what I want. I don't have to listen what other people want from me, but and I actually have my own opinions. I actually can tell them. I can speak up. It was like a very weird concept.
Yeah, it when you find your voice, everything changes.
Mhm.
And it's not a
Yes.
matter of finding your voice where you tell people how you feel in an angry way.
Yes.
It's
No.
finding your voice in a strong, stable
Mhm.
position that says, "Well, this is how I feel."
Mhm.
And in a point that you really can't be questioned because
Mhm.
you're not offering it as a questionable emotion, as a
Yes.
questionable thought.
Yes.
And that is finding your voice, and
Yes.
that takes, I'll tell you, it takes work,
Yes.
but you know when you wanna do it. So,
Yes.
I'm sure you had that inner voice
Mhm.
that was whispering for
Mhm.
years.
Yes, it was.
"Why are you
Yes.
doing this, Nicole?
Mhm.
You don't really wanna be doing this, but
Yes.
you're doing it
Yes.
anyway. Okay, well, maybe it's easier because then you don't have to listen to everybody barking at you and telling you you're
E
doing it wrong,"
yes,
and,
exactly.
all those things,
Mhm.
and we feel it's easier
Mhm. Yes.
to disobey
Mhm.
ourselves.
Exactly. Mhm.
And
Mhm.
when you do find that strength, which you did,
Mhm.
and you went through all this after you met your husband or before you met your husband?
After. And he was actually
After.
very supportive. I mean, he was not one that questioned me at all. With him, I could be myself. So that was very nice. I was very supported. So within my friend circle and my husband, I was I that was another place where I felt what was really me, because I could be it. But I just couldn't do it in the outside world.
Right.
There I was still very intimidated by this.
Oh, of course.
Mhm.
Because that's the side of the world that is always questioning you. And
Mhm.
it automatically probably brought you back to your childhood where you're
Yes.
like, "Oh, I better not run up the stairs
Yes.
and shake the
Yes.
building and have people yell at me." I mean, it's
Exactly.
amazing how quickly we
Yeah.
associate
Mhm.
today with decades ago.
Yes. Yeah, it's right, it comes right back, doesn't it? The memories that we have,
Yeah,
that are associated to a wound, yeah, they come right back.
they
That's
do.
that's very true. Mhm.
So, when you were becoming a coach and you were studying and you were becoming certified, was it almost an assumption, a no brainer to work with empaths because you had figured yourself out? Was that something that you felt passionate about? Or did that kind of stumble on you because evolution, unconscious
Exactly.
evolution?
Yes, I'm laughing because you will not believe this, but I've only figured out last year that I'm an empath. So this is a very new concept or it was. Now it makes so much sense. I was actually through LinkedIn, I stumbled across this whole empath and highly sensitive. It's more the highly sensitive. And I always thought I was a little bit of an empath, but I identified with highly sensitive people and empaths, the ones that pick up on everything, on all the emotions, and they walk into a room and they feel everything and then they have to leave the room. And I wasn't like that. I can actually kind of protect my energies quite well, so I don't pick everything up. And I feel like I'm very empathic, but I think there's a scale in on the empathy scale, and I'm not at the very intense scale where I pick everything up. So I never really thought I would be fall into that category until I listened to the summit, and I started identifying with all those speakers. I'm like, yeah, this happened to me and this too. And oh my gosh. And then I realized this is why I was treated the way I was treated and why I started shutting down and all that, because it was all this information that came in, and the different ideas that we have, the different way we think about things, and then maybe present the things, and then people around you don't understand it, and yeah, and then they shut you down.
Can you share with us so that we can better understand? And I realize there's a scale
Hmm.
as an empath,
Hmm.
but can you tell us what some of the qualities would be of somebody that could be considered an empath and that helped you realize?
Yeah, I also look at it more from the highly sensitive perspective, and empaths is actually also part of the highly sensitives. They process information differently. So it's not just one way. Obviously, the way you process information, it goes through different stages. And for a highly sensitive, the blocks are a bit reversed, or instead of going through 1, 2, 3, maybe we go to 3, 2, 1, and the way we think about things. And so we take in things on a deeper level. And instead of just looking at them for one way, we consider always all different kinds of ways that of an outcome that could be to a problem, or every if there's a group project, everybody gives their input, and as a highly sensitive, you listen, and then again you take it all in and you consider it, whereas I say the regular people, they already move on. They've already have the solution, and this is the way. Let's do this. And as a highly sensitive, you're like, well, but you could also look at it this way or that way, and you're still thinking. And so it goes a bit deeper, and it takes a bit longer. And in a lot of situations, this is misunderstood, and for a highly sensitive, it's also often an overwhelm, because we do take more information in and then process them. So it takes a lot more brain power, and it's exhausting. So we need more breaks and
I
more
absolutely.
downtime.
It almost sounds so. My brain, I'm definitely empathetic. I'm not sure if I would say I'm highly sensitive.
Hmm.
I'd have to learn more about it.
Hmm.
But I can also, which I've worked on a lot over the last years, have obsessive behaviors in my thoughts.
Right.
And I wonder if there is any correlation between that, because where, like you said, everybody else has moved on in their thoughts,
Yes.
but
Right.
the empaths are thinking, I'm thinking, but so let's say, you're working on a community project.
Right.
Everybody's moved on. I said, but wait a minute, what about the pregnant mothers who might be affected by this?
Exactly.
Or what about the
Hmm.
newborn
Hmm.
children who are coming
Hmm.
home with health
Hmm.
risks? And,
Yes.
I would come home
Hmm.
afterwards and think about it and think about it and
Yes.
think about it.
Yes.
And so,
Yeah.
in my mind, I'm like, oh, I'm just obsessing.
Yes.
But I imagine that that can be a difficult thing for somebody to understand within themselves,
Yes,
how to
exactly.
process. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because you don't really, I mean, and for you, it's just normal, you just consider all these different options, and you don't really understand why this couldn't be an option for other people, but they only focus on one thing. So I can very well see that you're also a member of the highly sensitives.
Oh, believe me. I mean, you know how many told, like, I used to think it was a bad word. You're being so sensitive,
Yes.
Christine. Like,
Yeah,
you're right.
exactly.
I am.
Yes. Yeah. If you were told, yeah, and that's actually one, like, yeah, you don't be so sensitive, don't be a
Mhm.
crybaby, don't be so difficult. These are all the things that highly sensitives hear when they're growing up, and I haven't really heard a sensitive one, and that's why I never thought I was one. For me, it was more like, don't make such a fuss. That was what I heard a lot. Don't make such a fuss. Just do it now.
Right.
That's what I heard. But definitely, if you're told, like, oh, don't be so sensitive, then you're definitely in that category as well, because it's just the feeling on a much deeper level. And also then where the empath falls on as well, where we just take in so much more, and can feel how somebody else in the group would feel, and then we want to include them. If somebody is very shy or quiet in a group, we want to include them, and where everybody else is that doesn't realize it, doesn't notice it, and just moves forward. Which is a
Right.
very, in that
Absolutely.
sense, it's a very nice quality. I mean, it is a good quality anyway.
Absolutely. Well, and just to touch on this, that, as we were talking about people that are told they're too sensitive, I was told, you were told,
Hmm.
not to make a big deal,
Yes.
essentially. And
Hmm.
so many of us grow up with
Hmm.
being told these things
Hmm.
that, you're making a fuss, don't
Hmm.
make a fuss,
Yes.
stop being a problem. And
Exactly.
so
Yes.
we grow up
Hmm.
thinking that we're problem
Hmm.
oriented,
Yes.
that we shouldn't open our mouths, we
Yes.
shouldn't speak, and we
Exactly.
end up missing
Yes.
all these amazing things that
Yes.
make us who we are and
Yes.
so incredibly unique that,
Exactly.
just to touch on the work that you do really quick, that I imagine that the clients that you work with who are highly sensitive,
Hmm.
and for you to validate them,
Hmm.
how
Yes.
incredibly rewarding it is for
Yes.
them to think and to realize,
Hmm.
I'm not a problem maker.
Exactly. Exactly. To learn that this is a gift in many ways, you just have to know how to navigate it, but and then not to put yourself down. Exactly. To really reverse this whole mind chatter about being the problem child, being the sensitive. That's like, no, this is actually really good, and embrace it, because it's a very beautiful quality to have in the world, for your surroundings, to be able to relate to people,
Oh, absolutely.
and understand them, and include them, and I guess in our world that is so much also focused on the masculine, on the doing, and on the logical side, analytical side. A lot of the highly sensitives, they just get overrun when they're not noticed. But if you have somebody, a leader, that can incorporate that and can see them and feel that's really beautiful, and I think that's what's really needed.
Agree. So in talking about your cultural, I mean, it's in your blood. You're Swiss. You were born in Switzerland. You have family that lives in Switzerland. And now that you've been in the States for 20 plus years,
Yeah,
more than
27, 28 almost, yeah. Hmm.
28 years, how now do you balance what you really appreciate in your blood-born culture,
Yes.
and what do you appreciate in your adopted culture?
Yes. That's actually a new thing that just occurred because what you said at the beginning, has something new happened, and it's not totally new, but it's fairly new, that I realized I'm Swiss at heart and American in spirit.
Uh,
So I've I realized I've never fully been able to. I feel like I'm a little bit of a hybrid here. I've never fully embraced the American culture, and not that I judge it or anything. It's just not all mine. And I realize how many of my Swiss, I still like. I still like structure. I still like that everything is on time, and I like to be on time, and I like that things are organized. I'm a very organized person, so there's a lot of these things that I really enjoy and embrace. But then on the other hand, I do enjoy the freedom here, the possibilities that you have here, that everything's possible. You can do whatever you want, and you can try out new things, and if you fail, then you fail and you start again, and it's not a big thing. And in Switzerland, if you fail, then people talk about it, and when you
wow.
are, yeah.
Even still?
That I don't know. That I'm not sure. I I can't really talk about this anymore, because it has been a while since I left, and the culture has definitely shifted a lot.
Sure.
And yeah, but I'm not sure. But back then, here I really embrace that, and enjoy this, just freedom of spirit, and allowing yourself to be and to unfold of who you are.
Yeah, yeah. I love
Yeah.
that. So do you have any parting thoughts for us as we bring this to an ending?
Yeah, I really just encourage everyone to, if you have that nudge in you and you feel like there's more, then go explore it, and just follow that path, and because it's very rewarding. There's so much outside the box. I lived in that box for so long, and now that, and the possibilities are really endless. Again, I see it in my journey, what I have encountered here in this country. So not only my being able to release these fears and insecurities, but also now embracing the spiritual path and finding that connection the more spiritual connection. I didn't miss anything, but now I'm seeing what this is like opening up for me too. So there's so many possibilities, and everything can be overcome. It's really just a matter of, in my case, what I'm doing. I work with energies. It's shifting the energies, because everything, every thought, every belief, everything, it's just a frequency. It's a vibration. So we shift the vibration, and things will start to change. And it
Oh,
is
thank you
very
so much.
possible.
Yes, possible is absolutely key.
Mhm.
Everything is possible. I am right there with you. Even when we think it isn't and we have all these excuses running in our mind because we're
Mhm.
so good at that,
Yes,
it's still
it
possible.
is.
It is still possible.
Yes,
Yes.
everything's
Well,
possible. Yes.
thank you so much, Nicole, for sharing your personal story with us today. I want you to know how incredibly valuable your story is to me and to our listeners. We have people
Thank
that
you.
live all over the world
Mhm.
and move from
Mhm.
different country to country. And there
Mhm.
can be a lot of confusion and a lot
Mhm.
of adaptation fear. And so
Mhm.
I appreciate you sharing that
Mhm.
with all of us today. And thank you to the listeners for tuning in. You'll find Nicole's contact information in the show notes, and I encourage you to reach out to her. And until
Thank
next
you.
time, enjoy yourself, enjoy the moment, and try to discover if you're aware of your unconscious evolution.
Thank you.
Thanks again,
Thank
Nicole.
you so much, Christine.